Good evening. Welcome out. Small crowd tonight, so sure and sing out. Turning your Christian hymnals to number 33. Brethren, we have met to worship. Number 33. Number 425. Am I a soldier of the cross? 425. Let's skip verses 4 and 5.
Good evening and welcome each one out tonight. As far as the order of the service, tonight we're going to have David Yoder has come up from Houston area. He's going to share with us a little bit what they got going down there and what the Lord's doing there. So at this time, we'll just turn the time over to him.
Good evening, everyone. Let me get my device plugged in here. There we go. Okay. All right. Yes, so once again, good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Yoder, and my wife, Sandra, and our 5 children are sitting in the back there, and we are from Houston. And so the how it comes that I'm here is a couple months ago, I was talking with Dave Kaufman. I was at Hillcrest with Kenny and Brian, and so I've known Kenny and Brian, Rosalie, Emily. My wife and I, we met at Hillcrest. So we were there with a bunch of these lot people, and so I mean great people, but just we were there with them. And so I was talking with Dave, and we're talking about his prison ministry and what he's involved in, and then we're talking a little bit about what we're doing down in Houston. And he asked if one of us would be willing to come up sometime and share a bit what we're doing, come up here and share what we're doing in Houston. And so I said yes, and so that's how come I'm here. So I guess just be careful with your conversations with Dave. Like you might end up here in the pulpit if you're not careful with that. So, but anyway, so that's what I'm here for, and I'm not here to tell you we have everything figured out. I'm not here to tell you that our church is perfect. I'm just here to tell you what we're doing. And so, a couple things. Sorry, was someone saying? Okay. So Dave mentioned he'd like to know who we are and where we are, and also how we got from where we were to where we are. So, and so that's kind of the 3 questions that we'll be looking at this evening. So first of all, we are followers of Jesus Houston, and we live in the southwest corner of Houston. So I don't know if you're all familiar with the layout of the city there, but if Houston was a clock, we'd be at the 7 o'clock position, like right above Sugar Land is where we're at there. So there's a that's the hang on a second here. And I'm not really familiar with PowerPoint, so I guess I'm learning 2 things tonight at one time. So, am I doing something wrong here? Oh, there it is. Okay. So, where we're from is we're from Ohio. We are from Holmes County, Ohio, and we're a church plant from Cross Point Mennonite Church in Baltic, Ohio. I don't know if you guys are familiar with some of the leaders there. Paul A. Miller, Mark Miller, Tim Miller, Sean Miller, a lot of Millers. And so we are from Cross Point Mennonite Church. When Cross Point started, they got this middle-sized church house in Baltic, Ohio, and they concluded from the onset that when the church house gets full, like they don't want to add on to accommodate more seating, they want to plant churches. And so as the church was started in 2013, and it grew fairly quickly. And so by 2017, 2018, it was the overcrowding issue was something to think about. And so there were some conversations going on about starting a church plant, church outreach. And so the conversations were happening, but no definitive steps had been taken. And so as we were talking among ourselves, we discovered there was a group of us that had very similar ideas, vision on doing a church plant in an urban context. And so we really enjoyed life in the country, but we're also looking at, some of the larger cities, and our churches, they're great, but there really wasn't a lot of our Anabaptist presence in the larger cities. And so as we thought about that, that's what we concluded. There was a small group of us in Crosspoint that had the similar vision of moving to a city. So in June of 19, it was 3 families and a single sister that we actually left Ohio the same day and arrived in Houston. And so that's where we started. In the next couple years, there were 2 medical students that became part of the church, and I will talk about them a little bit more. They have just recently moved on. They got put into residency, and they're moved on now. But then also last September, Kevin and Crystal Smucker and their family, they joined us. They're Elmer Smucker. Kevin is Elmer Smucker's nephew. So we were very, very blessed to have them be part of our group. And so that is what composes our group right now. Hang on, let me back up. So I'm sorry, let me back way up. I skipped a section there. So in part of our conversation of figuring out what we're going to do with this new church plant that we're doing, we looked around at some other churches that were similar to us, and we started asking some questions and just getting advice from different people. And the one advice that came in was that at the onset is don't worry so much about the location at this point. Just focus more on the group dynamics. Study, make sure that before you leave, that the group itself is on the same page. And so that was probably some of the best advice that we had heard. And looking back, it was a little frustrating because most of us were younger, and so we had some energy, and we wanted to just right away figure out where we're going to go. But thankfully, at the onset, there was an older family, Tim and Leanne Miller, that were part of our group. And he was about 10 years older than most of us, and he was able to kind of put the brakes on and just have us, go through some content together, make sure that we agree on church structure, just all these things that we kind of take for granted because we're part of a larger community. But it's still when you land in a different place, in an area outside of the kind of the normal environment. Some of those things you take for granted, it's really good to have hash through that and talk about what church life looks like, what church structure looks like, baptism, communion, divorce. It's all those things that everybody just oh yeah, of course we believe that. Well, when you're in the middle of a bunch of people who don't believe that, it's a little different. And so just having these conversations, and so we did that for about a year. For about a year, we studied a lot of the same content. We read some of the same books, listened to the same sermons, and we met it was nearly once a week for the first year. And looking back, that was really, really helpful even just in identifying ourselves as the church, and seeing us as a church that is moving out into a very untraditional area. So as we did that, we did that for about a year, and then we also had the church brought in several different speakers: Alan Roth, Val Yoder, Earl Martin, and then also there's a group in Boston, Followers of the Way. I don't know if they're very similar minded, but they're not. They would definitely not be. They wouldn't call themselves Mennonite, but they still they had a lot of the same vision as far as just doing an urban church plant. And so we got advice from all of this kind of a conglomeration of these different people, and yeah, we were really able to benefit a lot just from all of the different input that these people gave to us. So that was all right and good, but it ultimately led to the next step of where should we be living this out? That is really the logistical next step. And so there were three criteria that we had. One was obviously an urban population. That's what we wanted. And we also wanted a diverse population, somewhere that there's immigrants, that there's refugees, that there's people that are a little more marginalized. Immigrants and refugees tend to be, they're not standing on their own feet just quite as well in the new country, and they're more likely to be looking for help. And so that was the one thing we really wanted, was just a diverse community. And the third one was affordability. There's a lot of cities that have the first two, but not the last one. And none of us are wealthy, and we weren't then, and we're not now. But it was still it was finding a city where we could do this, but not be exorbitantly expensive. Several different cities came up. One of them was Columbus, Ohio. That fit the bill. Chicago was diverse, and it was urban, but it was expensive. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Raleigh, North Carolina, those were all very good possibilities, but they were pretty expensive, just pretty expensive. So Houston came up, and we're like, that's way out there. And so we decided we're going to look at Columbus. And so we looked at Columbus, and we decided since it was so near to us that we'd at least check it out. And so we went and checked it out, and we liked what we seen. We were actually pretty much planning on moving to Columbus. The more we thought about it, the more we were thinking how close this was to our home. And while there's nothing wrong with doing a church plant close to home, we also didn't want to go to all this effort and all this work of only removing ourselves an hour and 45 minutes from the hustle and bustle of life, where our focus would end up being a little more split. We would quickly run home for this, or we'd quickly go home for that. And so as we thought about that some more, we were like, that really could end up being a bit of an Achilles heel if we're not careful. And so maybe we should think of moving somewhere a little further away, somewhere where we can't just run home for the weekend, somewhere where if there is a first birthday party, we can't. We'd love to be there, but also if we're going to go to this effort, we want to do what we can to make it successful. Growth comes from God. Don't hear me say that we're going to muscle and pull this together ourselves, but still, we want to have a undivided focus on where we go to. So once again, the younger ones in the group were a little bummed out. We thought we had a location, we're going to go. This was amazing. Bummer. So anyway, but the more we thought about it, the more this is a wise thing to consider, and we should look at moving further away. And Houston came back up. And so we decided that we should at least make a trip to Houston. None of us had been there before. So in April of 2018, the three of us, Matt and Titus and myself, we made an exploratory trip to Houston. And we were surprised how big and how kind of unattractive and how kind of grimy but doable the city was. Like it was everything fit. Like it's, I mean, I'm sure. How many of y'all have been to Houston? Probably most of you. Yeah. So you could probably put your hand back up if I asked you, is it an unattractive city? Yes. It's kind of like we were told when we first got there is it's big, it's ugly, and nobody cares. Like that's just really sums up Houston. And but anyway, as we thought about this, we prayed about this, we're like, this really could work. And so we were there in April, and I think it was August of the same year. We went back with all the ladies from the group and did another trip. And then just as the more we prayed about it, the more we thought about it, it was like, it is further than what we really think necessary, but it's also, it fits all the criteria. And like, if we move here, like we're committed to being here. And so we made several more trips in the spring of 19, and then we moved in June. So that is how we ended up in Houston. Not because there was a lightning bolt from the sky that said Houston. It was just like it fit all the criteria, and that's just where we felt we could really live out the vision and the mission that we felt called to. So now that we're in Houston. Like I'll just spend the rest of the time here. I didn't look at the clock when I came up here. It's 6:20. Okay. That's how we ended up in Houston. I'll just spend a couple more minutes here talking about what we're doing there, just what daily life looks like. What our ministry looks like. So all of us are bivocational. When we moved down, I started a construction company, and then there's two brothers, Matt and Titus Troyer. They started a seamless gutter company. So we are bivocational, and so there's a lot of energy that gets put into just providing for our families. And I guess it's probably what you guys do here as well. And so that's the same. The one thing, so that keeps us pretty busy. The one thing that a lot of us did was we reached out to a local college, University of Houston, and they have what they call the International Student Friendship Program. And that was really, really cool. Like there were, so Matt and Sarah were connected with a gentleman from Saudi Arabia, and he has since graduated and moved back to Saudi Arabia. Lisa Burkholder, the single sister, she connected with a lady from Ivory Coast, Africa, and still meets with her every 1 to 2 weeks. Like there's a lot of interaction there, and have been able to really freely and boldly share the gospel with her. And Sandra and I connected with a young couple from Iran, and so that was really, really neat. Like you had this idea that Iranians are these terrorists, and they're not actually. Like a lot of them they are people that love living. They don't like Islam. Anyway, it was a really, really good experience just having them. We had them over to our house. It was nearly once a week for about 3 years. They have since graduated, and they have moved to Reno. And I have some pictures later on here. We actually had them up here in Rosebud at Eric and Monica Gingrich's cabin there. We were there for a weekend, and it was one of the highlights of our lives, I guess. But Kenny and Rosalie, you guys met them. And anyways, it's really, really cool interacting with them. Like they're not Christians. We wish they would be. We were able to share the gospel with them. If you think about it, like even though they're not Christians, what we couldn't really have done is travel to Iran and preach to them. But they came, and we were sharing with them. The same with this guy from Saudi Arabia. We can't go to Saudi Arabia and share with the people there, but they come here. So let's meet them here. Let's meet them here. That was kind of our idea. So Ivory Coast, the same thing. Like they're here. Let's find them. Let's share with them. Another really good connection that we made very early on is a young couple from Nepal. So if you, the guy grilling, and then the lady here in the back, that's his wife. And then the one in the front is his mother-in-law. And so they're actually, they're tenants in the same apartment complex that Lisa Burkholder lives in. And we met them, I don't know, 2 weeks or so after we moved there. And they've just become really, really close friends of the entire church. Like we just spend a lot of time together. He loves grilling chicken for us. We enjoy eating his chicken. It's just a really good arrangement like that. There is, was it 2 years ago? I don't want to divulge the details, but like just keeping it brief, is his wife, Susmita, had a crisis. And she ended up in the hospital. And then long story short, because it really wasn't safe for her to stay by herself, she came and stayed at Matt and Sarah Troyer's place. And she stayed at their place for 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. And yeah, we don't know how it would have been without that, but I'm pretty sure if they wouldn't have taken her in, like she probably wouldn't be alive today. Like it was really sketchy, just what all was going on there. And so they were able to share with her, and she was, I don't know, really, really close to becoming a Christian. However, her mom, the lady there in the front, she still lives in Nepal, and they're very, very strongly Hindu. And so her dad left her mom years and years ago. So her mom is by herself and dependent on aid from the village and from Susmita's brother. And basically she told Susmita, if you become a Christian, all help is cut off. And so it's kind of like all of a sudden just like that real crunch of like, which is more important, me being a Christian or my mom being ostracized from her community. So definitely, as you guys think about it, pray for them. Like there was some really good conversations, and also like she made the comment that she's like her mom had nothing to help her with. Hinduism had nothing to help her with. The only person that has ever helped her is Jesus. So like they're just thinking of that coming from someone who is a Hindu. Definitely the seed is sown, and just continue to pray with us that this would continue to flourish into them coming to repentance. But so that is one family that we're back and forth with a lot. The other avenue that we've done a decent amount with, since Houston is a welcoming city, there's been a decent amount of Afghan refugees that have come to the Houston area. And then the way that works is that once there's a group of them there, and then a lot of them come. And so most of the Afghan refugees, at least the men, have a decent English vocabulary because they would have worked with the U.S. military in Afghanistan. And so they have that understanding, they have that knowledge, but it's still like they land in a foreign country. They don't know the legal system. They can't get their paperwork straightened out. There's a lot of agencies that help them with this, but there's always room for more people. And so personally, Sandra and I have not really been involved in this avenue as much. There has been another family, Titus and Drusilla Troyer have been, I'd say all of us have been the most engaged in this ministry. One of the long-term goals that we would have for our church there is to eventually have an English teaching center, and where we teach ESL, and not necessarily for the sake of teaching English, but it is a way of meeting these people, meeting these refugees, these immigrants, whoever they might be, and finding those people that are truly seeking for a better way. A better way, their home countries let them down, their religions let them down, and they're seeking for something else. So our goal is to eventually have an ESL center. We don't have one yet, but that's when we moved down, that was one of the things that we really wanted to do eventually. And I think that is definitely something we're working towards. We just don't have the bandwidth at this time to really get it off the ground. But that is that is something we have on the horizon. Um, there was also a prostitution ring that we didn't know about before we moved down, but it ended up not being too far from our house. I mean, it was 2 miles. So in here, 2 miles is really close. In Houston, 2 miles is a little distance. But it was horrible. It was like you didn't drive through there after dark. Like it was bad. And the ladies had found this organization called Elijah Rising. And what this organization does is they go into these areas where there's these slave workers, and they give them like a little gift that has a hotline number written on the gift. And they'll tell them like, hey, if you want to get out of this, like here's a hotline you can call, and we'll help you. They'll take them to a safe house. They have rescued thousands of women from these horrible conditions. Several of the ladies met and joined in with Elijah Rising, but then COVID came, and then that shut down all of the in-person contact in that front. What the ladies in the church ended up doing after that was driving through this ring where the prostitution was so bad, and they would hand out water bottles, little gifts and they would put this hotline number on the gifts, and they would try to interact with the ladies and just get the message out there that there is a way out of this. Praise God, about 6 months ago, the Houston Police Department, they just shut the road down at night. They just blocked the road, and so thankfully that is no longer a needed avenue for ministry. But we praise God for answering our prayer in that. And so that is also another form of ministry that we have been doing. I'd mentioned earlier that there were 2 med students that they joined in our body, joined our church there. On the left is Seth and his wife Chloe, and then on the right is Yashanka, we just call him Yash. Yash grew up Hindu, and he actually attended Baylor as an undergrad. So he was in Waco for 4 years, I guess, as undergrad, and then after that went to Baylor College of Medicine in the medical center in Houston. So it was actually in Waco where he became converted and became a Christian, and then, through a long story, ended up at our church. Seth grew up in an evangelical family, and actually grew up in Kingwood, which is on the northeast corner of Houston. And so they both became part of our church. About a year ago, Seth married Chloe, and it was just a real blessing having them as part of our fellowship there. The one thing that we did discover that it's a little harder to do in reality than what you think it might be, and that is, coming from culturally Mennonite families, we kind of have an idea of how things should look, how they should smell, how they should be. And when you have other Christians come in, that they see what you're practicing, what you're teaching, and they get it, but it's still, they have a different perspective, and they have a good perspective. And I say this with the onus on us. It has been a challenge knowing how to stand for your conviction, but also not to be dogmatic about this is how it's going to look. Just having a little bit of a flexibility on the principle, being firm on the principle, but having a bit of flexibility on the application and not compromising on the principle. And I will say, having Yash and Seth as part of our fellowship, they really help to it just helped us to see. They gave us a perspective that we didn't have without them, and it made for some tough conversations. It made for some tense moments, and it wasn't fun, but it was helpful. It was very helpful just having them there, and so anyway, hang on, what am I doing here? so I mentioned that 2 weeks ago they left our church. What happened is in med school, you apply for residency, and you are pretty much, I mean, you can say where you want to go, and I don't, it's kind of like a algorithm type of thing, but you're a little bit at the mercy of the government on where you actually end up. But so Seth, however, he put in Boston and Houston as where he wanted to go for residency because his wife is from Boston. And so they ended up being, his residency is at a Harvard hospital in Boston. So he was on one hand excited, on the other hand a little bit disappointed, but they left for Boston. Yash is planning to, or actually he is not going to get his medical degree, I guess you would say. He's graduating, but he's not doing residency. He's using his medical school as a platform for doing biotech investing. And so he is not doing residency, but he also got a job with an investing company in Boston. And so about 2 weeks ago, they packed their bags and they left us. So we will really miss them. But truly it has been really, really good having them as part of our church there. So this comes back to, we'll start with some pictures here of who we are. You put some faces to these names here. So, like I mentioned, there was three families and a single sister that left Ohio. This is the one in the middle is Lisa. Lisa Burkholder. She was part of the original group. Here, she was working at a window manufacturing place. This was her last day. Here's Lisa with her friend from Ivory Coast, and the one Frederica. Frederica is her name. This is Titus and Drusilla Troyer and their family. This is obviously not Houston. They went to Alaska last year, so that's where that picture was taken. And the next picture, Matt and Sarah Troyer, it's not very clear, but so Matt and Titus are brothers. This is Matt and Sarah Troyer and their family. They have one little boy that is not on the picture, but they have him now. So this is Kevin and Crystal Smucker and their family. Like I said, they just moved in September. They had spent 4.5 years in Jordan prior to, they moved back to Ohio last May with the intention of moving to Houston at the end of the summer. So it's been a real blessing having them as part of our church there. And that is us. We also have an addition. After this picture was taken, we have a 4-month-old daughter, Gracie. So this is the original group. This was all of us together. This is really much on the side here, just a little bunny trail. But so this picture was taken, we moved in June, I think it was June 18th we got down to Houston. So we're from Ohio where summers are pleasant and comfortable. And and July 4th rolls around, we're like, hey, why don't we go for a bike ride? None of us had any work anyway, so like, hey, why not just go for a bike ride? And so we went to George Bush Park and we went for a bike ride. And we about didn't make it back to our vehicles, but we did squeak together enough energy to take a picture. So this is after the bike ride. So we never have gone biking on July 4th again. So we may, I don't know, but yeah. This picture here is last September, October, we had a church retreat. And so this is the group, as of just 2 weeks ago, we had 3 people leave us, but that is the group, that is the current group. So now just some pictures of interacting with some of the people that we have met there. See, Sandra, she's from Pakistan, right? Yeah, sorry, I should have asked you before. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. But so this is, well, my name is, it's, pardon? Tabinda, that's right. I think it was Deepika, but no, Tabinda. Yeah, so Tabinda and her son there. Sandra met with her quite a bit, and all of a sudden Tabinda just went off, like just stopped replying. So we're not sure what happened there. But yeah, that unfortunately that's not something, not a continuing engagement there, but had some really good conversations, exchanged books. Yeah. This is last Thanksgiving. This is at Titus and Drusilla's place. They had some of their friends come over. We wanted to have as many of our friends come for Thanksgiving as we could. It ended up being too big of a crowd for one house, so we actually split up into two different places. So this was at Titus and Drew's place. Just going down on the left here, the guy in the green shirt, he was actually an Afghan refugee. He worked with the U.S. military, and had a very sad story. Still in the middle of it, he was there at the airport at Abbey Gate when the bomb went off, and he was telling us about that. And it's just a horrible experience. And he was right there, seen it all happen. He waded up a sewer like a drain up to his waist to try to get into the airport to get out. And like, it was just, we have no idea what these poor people have gone through just to get out of their country. So that is Saeed. He's there on the left. The next guy leaning in, that's Yash. He was part of the church there. Across the table on the right, with the white shirt is Saeed and not Ismail. That's another guy. Ahmad. Saeed and Ahmad. He came to the U.S. on a lottery visa, so he is here. Very much by chance, but I mean not by chance, but you know the way the lottery visa works. It's no rhyme or reason to it. The next couple is Jeffrey and Lisa Albertson. They are part of a holiness church there in Houston. We have a decent amount of interaction with them. And then next is Cole and Chloe, which are Titus and Drew's children. This is us at it was a Persian restaurant where Saeed and Ahmad worked. So Saeed and Ahmad are there at the end of the table there as well. Our kids playing with their friends. Here, the story to this picture is, I don't know if you remember the freeze that happened back in 2020, was it 21? So we were without power, and no water. And here's Ravi, the guy that I'd mentioned earlier. They invited us all to their place because they had power and water. And so we were on, this is really, I don't know, it just really warmed my heart. We were on his back porch. He was grilling ribs for us. And anyway, he was really our lifeline in the middle of that storm there. This is a lady from Vietnam. So I'll just show you the next picture. That's her and her husband. The first house we lived at, they were our next door neighbors. And so the one day they wanted me to replace the siding on their house. And so in payment for that, I mean, they gave money as well, but they made us Vietnamese lunch that day. So that was really neat, just having them in our kitchen, showing Sandra how to make this beef stew that was really, really good. Here is our Iranian friends. So, like I mentioned, we met with them very early on. Like they were only dating when we first met them. I should have had these pictures flipped around, but this picture here is when he proposed to her. So he invited us to that event. That was really cool. And then this picture here going back, that is at their wedding. And so it was really, really neat to be able to just take that in with them. And then this picture here is up here at Eric's place, at their little cabin they had, and it really meant so much to them that Eric let us come. Like they never met him. They met him later on then, but they just really loved. They just loved to be here, and so just a shout out to Eric there. So this is then a year later. We wanted to come up to the cabin again. and that Eric and Monica had it rented out. And so they just said, "Oh, just come up and stay with us, and you can just stay at our house." And it's like, "Oh, that's very, very kind of you." And so they, I guess to humor their little boy, Hamid decided that he would take a ride on the donkey. And and so Eric's boy is trying to pull the donkey, and Hamid's toes are touching the ground there. But it is kind of an interesting setup there. Then in June of last year, our family made a trip out to Reno to visit Hamid and Banafshe, and we had an Airbnb together. And Hamid's parents are on the far part of the picture. His dad is on the right, his brother is in the middle, and then Hamid's mom is the lady on the third person in. And so it's really neat just interacting with them for a weekend. This picture was taken in Northern California in the mountains. We ended up going to Yosemite together. Really, really neat time that we had with them. Here's a picture of our church service. And these pictures here, they're just kind of random. So we'll just flip through them. We have discovered that one really effective way of connecting with people is over food. It's kind of it's like all cultures, everybody eats, everyone is proud of their food, everyone likes to serve it, everyone likes to make it. And it just really brings a lot of maybe the cultural barriers down. If you just have people over, they make their food, you make your food, and you all have one big happy food together. And so this was one time, Paul A. was down. Paul is still very much involved in our church plant there, and is part of the advisory team of the church there. And this is the last slide here. This was a Russian family. So these people, man behind her, the lady in the red dress is a medical student from Russia, and they are here in Houston to study for her step 1 and step 2 board exam. And so we've been able to, and they just moved down very recently, and so we've been able to interact with them a decent amount. And here their daughter had her first birthday, and so they asked us if we would be willing to host a birthday party for them. So that's what we're doing here. So I'm trying to think of that's really who we are. That's what we're doing. Nothing spectacular, and we're just a church in Houston, and we are doing our best to live out the Bible where we're at. And anyway, we covered quite a bit of ground here. Is there any questions, any clarification, any correction, anything? Yeah, anything anyone has to share? Yeah. So I actually just reached out to them about 2 or 3 weeks ago to be reconnected with somebody else, and they have not gotten back to me. So I need to just pursue that a little bit more. Usually they're pretty quick about it, but they haven't gotten back. The only one that's current right now, we still have quite a bit of interaction with the Iranian people. They're having a baby any day now, and there's 4 or 5 of the church ladies that are flying out in June to just go and see the baby. So we're still interacting with them, but as far as any local interaction, like the only one would be Frederica from Ivory Coast. Great question. So I had a Hispanic guy working with me for about six months. And then, but he ended up going back to Mexico. Aside from that, no, we really haven't had a lot of interaction with it. There's a lot of Hispanics there, and so we interact with them much more on on a business level, or there's a huge, there's a big Hispanic community there. So yeah, no, we really don't have any active engagement with them as a church. It's yeah, it's definitely there would be room there for that. Yeah, yeah, in the Bel Air, yes, exactly. No, there's I would say so I've heard that there's no ethnicity that makes up over 50% of the population in Houston, but I would say the Hispanics get really close. They get really close. There's a lot of them there. A lot of them there. Yeah. Yeah, so we rented for the first 2 to 3 years, kind of it just depended. But we have all the from the three families that moved down first, we've all bought a place now. Lisa still rents an apartment, and Kevin and Crystal they rent. They would like to buy here in the next couple months if possible, but that is the current arrangement. Yeah. So we would be unaffiliated. We have, yeah, we had, like I said, we had some interaction with Followers of the Way. Um, yeah, we currently don't. We have some, very little, but it would be a very similar church structure. Yeah, to your point. Yeah, yeah. Right now we are unaffiliated. Um, we lean heavily on Paul Miller and Tim Miller as our kind of our advisory team. So that is where the I don't know the church I don't know what you call that, but like the backing would be essentially. But yeah, great question. Yeah, and I like Followers of the Way was really helpful in some of the early years just because they were doing a lot of what we were looking to do. Um, Yeah, and I mean, I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus or whatever, but like we have just we still have interaction with them, still respect them a lot, but we don't have any really active back and forth with them. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. It's a really big deal. Yeah, it's a really big deal, and yeah, that's a really good question. So that is something where our Iranian friends didn't care. Like they ate anything, and they actually yeah they liked pork. They actually enjoyed it very much, and so that was we didn't have the full exposure like you just described, but the Afghan people would be much stricter in that regard, and like they're the one time we totally didn't think about it, and we had some community friends that have since actually have gone to Afghanistan as missionaries, and so they had quite a bit of interaction with the Afghan families there. And one time they came over, they brought some friends over, and we had pizza. Never gave it a thought. We put pepperoni on the pizza, like, and those poor children didn't eat anything. Like, we felt so bad. Like, can you just take the pepperoni out? No, no, no. Like, it's just that's a big deal, and I heard it described this way. It's like us, like thinking of us eating horse meat. Like, it's not only wrong for them, it's actually disgusting. And so like even a pan that was used to fry pork, like, yeah, like they just don't. So to your point, it's a big deal. And it's something that the more traditional they are, the more you really have to watch that. So I'd love to hear your interaction there. It sounds like you had the full exposure there. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just, I couldn't understand the language at first, enough of one word that
Halal? Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Because like to us, we think it's just kind of food categories, but it's actually much more than that. It's like how was the animal treated? Which direction was it facing when it was killed? Like there's a lot. Like have something halal certified, like it has to be facing east when it takes the bullet, or like it needs to. It's a big deal, and yeah. So no, it's a very very good question. Okay. Really? Really? That's really neat. And how did you get into contact with them? Uh-huh. Hmm.
some friend, somebody from gave this contact, and they were all top letters. Vehicle. Since then, they moved to Michigan. Here,
Okay.
a short time,
Uh-huh.
California, now they're in,
Interesting. Uh-huh. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're usually extremely hospitable. Yeah. Well, bless you very much for going to all that effort. Um, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, we'll come down anytime. We'll come down anytime. We'll yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, any other questions? Definitely don't want to cut anybody off, don't want to drag it on unnecessarily. Yeah, so that's right, exactly. And so they do have like so I'm drawing pretty much solely from Hamid and Banafsheh. That's kind of our context there. But so what they had was a Persian cluster or Persian group, you would call it, that interacted together in the college. But then outside of the college it was a little bit more each one to his own. But they do have like they tried to, or no, I shouldn't say they tried to. I think they just naturally kind of birds of a feather. And so they called it the Iranian WhatsApp group or something like that. So they have that kind of interaction there. And I think like that would probably be across the board for most countries. Yeah, but there is yeah I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep rambling, but yes. Good question. All right, well, thank you guys for the privilege. Thanks, Dave, for kind of roping me into it. And yeah, if you think about it, pray for us. And it's not mandatory, but come down and see us. So we'd love to have you guys. We typically meet on Sunday afternoon at 4:30. Um, so I know it would tend to be a little bit later between in the evening, but if you need a place to stay, we'd be happy to to arrange that, or you need a place to stay after the service and come home on Monday, we'd be happy to accommodate that as well. So, yeah, thank you guys very much. And I will say, if I feel in one regard, I feel a little bit bad that it was 5 years before anybody got here. But it's 5 years, and so, well, almost 5 years. But definitely really enjoyed the interaction, and yeah, God bless you in what you're doing here.
Thank you for coming out tonight and sharing. I've really enjoyed that. I guess my thoughts went a lot to the fields are white and ready to harvest. Are we willing to go out and help harvest? Even if it's in Houston or wherever, we might even not really want to go. Is there any announcements yet tonight?
Wednesday evening, we asked for your counsel on giving us a few men to help us through some issues. And as we announced this morning, we had a tie. Just for transparency, Jalen received the most votes, and then the next was a three-way tie between Aaron, Alfredo, and Merle. And so we'd like to bring that back to you to decide on that tie. So if we could take care of that tonight, we'd like to. Is there any questions on that? Pardon? It's my son. Okay, Brian, if you could help me just take the votes, and then we'll just do a closed die vote, and we'll vote on these three brothers. Okay, we can use the same one. Okay, the order that I have them written down is Aaron, Merle, and then Alfredo, so we will vote in that order. Okay? Take care of this side. If you could give us your voice on this, those voting for Aaron. Okay, thank you. And those voting for Merle. All right, thank you. And those for Alfredo. All right, thank you. That would be Brother Aaron. All right, thank you for that.
Okay, if there are no more, let's all stand and we'll have prayer yet. Our loving Father, we come before you again this evening. We thank you so much for your blessings on us. Thank you too for your work and that you are faithful wherever we go. We just ask that you would be with the work there in Houston and continue to bless them and I say spread the gospel for you and so that you would be with Dave's family as they go back to Houston tonight. Just keep your hand over them, protect them too as that goes about their work there in the community. Just give them much wisdom and direction. And Father, too, has asked that you would be with each one of us yet, and just help us to be watching for your return, and that we'd be ready to meet you when you would call us home. We pray in your most holy name.